And here's Denny with Tony, and we're going to be talking about security in your homeland.
Good
Denny,
morning,
take it.
good morning, good afternoon, good evening. As you can tell, my voice is not the way it should be. So I'm not gonna do that much talking today. I'm gonna let Tim and Tony take over. We are going to be talking about HomeLAN, LAN security or HomeLAN alerts. We hope that this it's crazy, right? It's not what we want to talk about, but it is what we want to talk about. Okay, take it away, Tim.
Well, the number one problem we're having today, Danny, is attacks, whether they're on children, companies, parents, whatever. As a matter of fact, Tony and I were talking today, and I've been doing a study for a local presentation on cybersecurity, and children are 5 to 12 times more likely to have their ID stolen on the internet. So that's pretty scary because what they're doing, and there's a lot of different ways. Got an article coming out about it, but they do piggybacking and a couple of other things to actually steal children. One young lady turned 19 and was getting into college and found that the hackers had already stole $1.4 million in her name. So that's pretty scary, Tony. You know that. Um,
Yeah.
One of the biggest scams, I don't know, it's not going on, I don't think, in Canada, but it's the phone call from the IRS. We're going to sue you if you don't call us and give us money. And believe it or not, even though we've talked about this, it's been going on for 3 years, people are still falling victim to it. So let me clarify it. And I can quote several IRS agents. The IRS will, one, never, ever call you on a phone before they have contacted you in other alternate ways. Usually standing on your doorstep, banging on your door with an ID, sending you a letter, a registered letter, okay? They will not contact you by phone. That is a fraud. Number two, never ever, no matter what, give anybody your banking information over the phone because that's what they want you to do. And of course, they clean your account out and before you know it. So the IRS scam, if you get a phone call, write down the phone number that it comes from. If I'm sure you have caller ID. Write that down and call your local IRS office and tell them you got a phone call from that, and then go block it. That way they won't bother you again. But do not ever call them back, okay? Because then they put you in the scam file.
We have the exact same problem, and our version of the IRS is called the Canadian Revenue Agency, CRA, and it got so bad. February of 2015, they posted on their website, still there, and the title on the article right on the website says, "Beware of telephone and email scams," and they go through a couple of bullets of what to do, what not to do. And they say, for example, and this is I don't know if this happened in the U.S. as much, but this is happening a lot in Canada, where they'll ask for you to confirm your income tax information by getting your passport number or your health card number or your driver's license number, and these are all things people use to get into the next step for identity theft and all that sort of nonsense. But people are, and again, it's nobody's fault. People just trust the name CRA, and well, it must be them. And with spoofing now on VoIP, the phone can display anything. It could say Ottawa, Ontario. It could say Washington, D.C. It can say, Mickey Mouse. It could say anything. And they say never share any of even your taxpayer information with another person. So
Nothing.
anything anybody ever asks you to confirm, you shouldn't do anything. The best advice I've been telling everybody, because I help a lot of ISPs set up shop, and I tell them to tell their customers, if you ever get a call, the best thing you can do, if there's any doubt, which you should be in doubt of everything nowadays, ask the person if you can call them back. That's it. And that's the oldest trick in the book, because I'm sure you remember, Tim, in the late 80s when we used dial-up, right? We used dial-up PC Anywhere, and you'd call it and you'd log in, and in many cases there would be some kind of address book referencing your password, and it would call you back, and your computer would respond. It's the same thing. So if they say, you can't call me back or whatever, then you should be very suspicious, because anybody in their right mind would say, well, you can call back, but you know what, you may not get me, you'll get somebody else in the tax office. But when you call back and it says Canadian Revenue Agency or IRS or whatever, then guess what? They exist. It's the right thing to do. And
Well, that can even be spoofed, Tony. I've seen that be spoofed.
oh yeah. Yeah, that can be spoofed. Yeah, you're
What I
right.
tell people is, if you want to talk to me about something, send me a registered letter, paper trail, and or if you want to come out and visit me, bring your badge and ID.
Yeah, and while I was researching this topic, I don't know if you're aware of this, Tim, but the Federal Trade Commission has a whole page on phone scams.
Yep.
And they talk about how to handle an unexpected call. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. But the point is, this is not trivial anymore. People are being bilked out of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Actually, it's 55 million so far this year.
Yeah, the total.
Yeah.
It's only growing too, right? And they say the 55 million is a fraction of the real number because a lot of people are too embarrassed to report it because it's so they didn't get ripped off that much, I guess.
Well, it's not even IRS. Just IRS. Had a friend of mine who owns a Mexican restaurant, doesn't speak English very well. 7 o'clock at night, he got a phone call, quote, from the power company, and they were going to turn the power of the restaurant off tomorrow if he didn't go to Walgreens and get $350 green card and call them back with the number.
Yeah, right. And you're right. It comes in many different flavors, right? You got the power company, the phone company. There's don't forget the good old one, Tim, that's still going around where somebody calls you and said, your son, your daughter, your friend, whomever is in Spain and they've gotten hurt and I'm calling on their behalf and they need some money for some hospital expenses, blah, 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 or they're in jail.
Or their hospital, they've lost their ID and they need money to pay their hotel bill. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's a constant scam. And as a matter of fact, the IRS just recently put up another renewed warning that it's going crazy. Tax scams, phone scams, and like you said, it is prevalent. Now, I know I shouldn't, but a lot of times I'll play with them. I have numbers that I can call back on that are hidden numbers. They can't find the real number. And I spent about 20 a IRS agent a couple of weeks ago, and what I wound up doing is give him all kinds of false information to really mess with his day, because I figured once he hung up from me, he would probably spend the next 4 or 5 hours trying to figure out how to get my bank account that didn't exist. So most people won't do that, but I did. And
I think it's equally important to point out, Tim, that the phone scams is just one flavor of ways they can get a hold of you, right? Because, of course there's email still, right, and all that kind of nonsense. But I think, I think this boils down to something simple. It's just people, for some reason, are a little too trusting with reading whatever they believe on the net, the email, or whoever seems to call them, right?
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from, but if anything, that's an old school thing. But for some reason, very well-educated people are falling for these scams, if you want to call them. And I don't know what to do other than just tell people to just try to use as much common sense and be as paranoid as possible.
Yeah. It's like Windows 10. Now jump on to Windows 10. Windows 10 right away violates your privacy, but it's in the EULA. Okay, if you read the EULA, you're giving Microsoft and its partners access to your information, and they say it's nothing that you can see, but it does give hackers access, because the minute you log in with Windows 10 in the internet, you get a customer ID number associated with you. When you log in, and and you have to actually go through Windows 10 and turn off several things, because your privacy is important. So you have to learn how to go in, and there are things you can go in Windows 10 and cut down on some of the losses, but you can't get away from it. Windows 10 is a follower software.
And I've read quite a few articles on people that have gone through this click and cleanup routine, and a lot of the telemetry data still gets transmitted even when you turn all this off, and then you have to go into the registry, and you really got to start digging in to try to rip the stuff out. But at the end of the day, you're 100% correct. There's nothing you can do to stop it all. You just can't.
Well, even your Wi-Fi password, Google, Microsoft grabs, and it sends it out to the internet. And if anybody knows how to hack that channel, which is not hard to do, they're getting information. They're getting your customer number, your Wi-Fi passwords and all that stuff. So Windows 10 is very dangerous security-wise, and I'm holding out with Windows 7 as long as I can 2020. I might not even live that long, but I hope so.
Not with the way we're going.
Yeah. So we talked about the phone scam. We talked a little bit about children and education.
Oh, yeah, right.
If you go down the hierarchy of protected networks, high schools, K to 12, that whole area is probably the lowest and least protected, and yet hackers now are doing this piggyback thing, and it's relatively easy to steal your child's ID. Like I said, it's 5 to 12 times more prevalent for them to steal a child's ID than adult's ID. And the problem is, you know, they have a social security number or a tax ID number in Canada, and usually when they're growing up, that's idle. Nothing's going on. So you're not checking it. You know, parents don't check it. I tell parents, go open a 10 or 15 or $100 bank account, and you'll get a report every month from the bank. And at least at that point, your kids are beginning to establish a credit ID or a tax ID. And that makes it a lot easier. I also recommend using some of these monitoring companies. It ain't that expensive, but don't leave your kids out because their credit is not idle. People are trying to steal it. So that's another big one. Of course, Tony, you want to talk a minute about the latest NSA, the No Such Agency. As a friend of mine who's a federal agent said, he said, it's amazing. We can't even keep a recipe safe.
Yep.
And I jokingly said, the only ones they let us.
You talking about Big Mac?
Yeah, the NASA, yeah.
Yeah, so, well, I think, you know what really concerns me about the whole hack, and there's a lot of debate. I'm going to use that word very, very loosely right now. There's a lot of debate going on if the hack is even legit or if it's just a very elaborate hoax. And I don't think it matters. I think the point is, even with the NSA, even with you at home, you just have to assume it's not safe. Period. So at the end of the day, you know, it doesn't matter if because the hackers are demanding, and I think the last number is 568 million in Bitcoin or something like that.
Yeah, it's 1 million Bitcoins, which is $550,000. 550 million.
Million. Yeah, right. Yeah, 1 million Bitcoins, right. Yeah. And I think the biggest problem we're going to have, because to be honest with you, a lot of these types of tools that quote unquote has been taken or stolen or copied, I don't know what the word is for it today, a lot of those same types of tools exist anyways. I think what's going to be important about the hack is if it is true and some of the stuff that has been taken, which will exploit things like, you know, Cisco routers, Juniper routers, all of those types of, I'm going to say, exploits, if you will, that's been very hotly contested in the last few years of even being possible. So I'm interested to hear at the end of the day, yeah, does the stuff really exist? The software really exist? And for me, all that means is that the vendors should really jump all over this and say, hey, if I have a vulnerability, as always, I should be patching this up. This goes on to even just kind of spills into the whole exploit vulnerability and just keeping things up to date. You know, there's the Android exploit that's been announced that 80% of all phones are vulnerable to as well for man-in-the-middle attacks. And that's an Android phone or tablet or whatever you want to call it. The point of this is Android or Google at some point has to be able to provide patches, and the argument now is how far back do they patch these things up?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's the same thing with Microsoft we face. You know, with our Microsoft owns 99.9% of operating systems, and you know, where does it stop? Where do we get the ability to be safe? And of course, Microsoft is saying if you pay your monthly, which will happen, I think it's next year, where they start charging a monthly fee of $10-something for your OS and $5-something for your Office if you have Office 365 or something like that. And the justification of that is that, well, we're constantly fixing it and upgrading it and keeping you safe. Most of the time, I think, and I think you agree, you and I've talked about this, fixes are reactive. They've already happened before you can actually fix them.
Yeah.
So I think it hurts us. But another vulnerability, Tony, that most people don't know about is your processor. Intel has what they call active management technology.
Yeah,
And I called Intel once and said, tell me about it. It's a hack point to me. Oh, no, it's very safe. Well, the guys at Black Hat said it's already been hacked even before it was released.
Mm-hmm.
But it allows people to access your computer, supposedly just the people that own, that are updating your BIOS or doing things like that. But if your computer is plugged in, even if it's turned off, it can be accessed.
Mm-hmm.
And RAM charges can be loaded, new BIOS can be loaded, and other vulnerabilities are there. Now, I know Intel is a great company. They're doing a great job of trying to be proactive, because the original thought process with this active AMT, they call it, was to allow companies to constantly put in upgrades to keep ahead of vulnerabilities, and also for a corporate standpoint to keep the corporate software updated and protected. But it's a vulnerability also. It's a door that can be opened, and it's been opened. I mean, Black Hat's already said and that it's been done, and I think they're one version behind Intel so far.
Well, and I don't want to repeat myself too many times, but like I said, if it's online, it's not safe. Period.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And this spills into something else that we haven't even talked about yet, but it's kind of related. Is a lot of these IoT, the Internet of Things devices, a lot of them call back, and they're calling back not necessarily the company that has the sticker on the device. They're calling the manufacturers back that may not be in your country even, right? So this whole thing is kind of, to me, it's kind of interesting, only because I'm always a big proponent of baselining, and I'm seeing this stuff. I'm seeing devices call back. I'm seeing devices talk to these weird servers and these weird IPs, and many times they don't even use a name. It's a hard-coded IP, and you could see this stuff going back and forth. And I've always wondered, how long is it before somebody who doesn't want things to work well start interfering with that IP, or get in the way of the conversation, or intercept the data, or just cause all sorts of stress for you? Because now IoT is going to be everything, in your thermostats, in your TVs, in your fridges. The push started in the 90s, but it's really picking up steam now. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of it.
No, I mean, I have a neighbor that got a brand new thermostat, and I was playing over here next door, and I picked it up on one of my Wi-Fi scanners, and I'm like, I wonder if I can get in that. And it took a few minutes, and I called him up and said, you realize that I can do, people that want to hurt you can do things. I mean, let's take one of the latest things we found here in Georgia is people like to put TVs in dressing rooms so people can, well, they found out that the TVs had cameras in them.
Yeah.
Built in by the manufacturer under the IoT philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, people can grab your camera and your microphone on your computer, on your tablet, on your cell phone. Trust me, they can do it on your TV now. So if you buy a TV and you want to be able to be seen by other people, don't ask questions. If you want to, you better think about it, because like you said, it's everywhere. And if you're not conscious, and I think I told the story about my friend that got a refrigerator that called me and said, man, I got this dang refrigerator, and all of a sudden my Wi-Fi is just eaten up by this thing trying to talk to someone. And he says, what do I do? And I said, I'll be over, get a screwdriver. And we took it apart, found the board, ripped the board out. I said, now it won't try to communicate with your Wi-Fi. But I mean, some of these new refrigerators have cameras built into them, so you can pull up your cell phone and look in your refrigerator. Oh my gosh, that's not hackable?
Well, every month I do a 1-hour troubleshooting webcast, and when I get to the Wi-Fi portion, I did this on purpose. We bought a new treadmill winter, and guess what? It has a built-in access point. And when you go through, and here's the worst part, because you hit a really good point, Tim. The software in the treadmill does not allow you to change anything about the access point, change anything. You can't even put security on it. It's open by default. And you can't even change the channels, and you can't turn it off. So, this is classic, right? And I think, to me, this leads into something that I think is a little bit, it's not so much a HomeLAN issue, but it's more of I think, a bigger issue, is the same types of things have been going on within your utility networks for years, right? Your SCADA networks and so on. And I've read many reports about SCADA, and some of those SCADA systems have hard-coded passwords that you cannot change. So the main system password is hard-coded, right? It's the same kind of idea, and I tell people all the time when they buy something, if you don't need the word smart, then save yourself some bucks. I just bought my wife a TV the other day, and there was two of them on the shelf, two Samsung TVs. The smart one was $200 more. Well, guess what? I don't need a smart TV. She's just got to watch it. She's not playing with it. So sure enough, save some money and not worry about it, right?
But you use the term smart. I think be smart and don't buy smart. Okay?
Smart.
Be smart, don't buy smart. Because if you don't know how to... Tony, you do a lot of training.
Mm-hmm.
And you get in front of a lot of network engineers, network managers, security managers, on a average level, and they represent a very small part of our world population. How much percentage of them would you think would be able to adequately troubleshoot a open security issue?
Yeesh.
Okay, don't say any more.
Minimum.
And yet we're pushing all this stuff into homes where sometimes the smartest network person is an 8-year-old kid.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, think smart. I do a lot of classes for the Georgia Bureau of Investigation cyber safety classes, and I talk to PTAs and, kids, schools, teachers, everything. And I always ask this question. If you're not going to use it, why don't you turn it off? When you go to bed at night, do you need your computer on right by your bed? Google says that about 40% of women under 35 get up at least once a night and check their social status, okay? Wait till the morning. And oh, by the way, do you realize how easy it is for someone to capture your camera and watch what you do in your bedroom where you keep your computer?
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy. It's also fairly easy on your phone. You have to give access to it. So a couple of rules that I like to tell people. If you're not using it, turn it off. If you're not home from 7 in the morning till 5 or 6:30 at night, why do you have your Wi-Fi on? Why do you even have your network router on?
Mm-hmm.
If you have your Wi-Fi on, you're opening it for someone to hack. And trust me, I don't care how big a password you have, they're relatively easy to hack, okay? And most people don't use very big, complex passwords,
right?
Okay?
Right.
Suggestion there is don't use your name, don't use your kid's name, don't use your birthday, don't put your dog's name down. Come up with a real password that is nonsensical.
But Tim, It doesn't even have to be somebody try to hack in. I've done a lot of, set up an ISP up in Northern Ontario for a retirement community, and people who aren't comfortable with Wi-Fi, their friends, their sons, their daughters who set it up for them, don't put a password on it, so grandma doesn't have to remember the complicated word, right? And then you have the neighbors hopping on your Wi-Fi because they can. Why not?
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, because one of the ISPs I work for, they have metered internet access for these people. And people will say, well, I didn't use all this data. So what we did with one guy, and this is so low tech, it's funny, Tim, I said to him, here, we'll fix it. So I went and I got a timer, plugged it into his access point, because during the day he's gone, just like you said, right? Mm-hmm. So between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., the timer's off, so there's no power to the access point. And then from 11 p.m. till 6 a.m., it's off. And we did that for about a month, right? It was the easiest low-tech way to do things, and he knew how to work a mechanical timer. Hey, guess what? His usage the following month
went down.
And guess what? 2 of his neighbors ordered internet.
it's pretty amazing what goes on. So just, one guy one time in a class told me, he said, I don't have time to worry about all this stuff you talk about. I said, look, how much you buy them for your Christmas tree, right? Those little white mechanical timers. Buy one, put it in the plug where you plug in your access point, your router, whatever. Put in, the relative times you're not home. It's a very simple security fix, and it helps a lot keeping the bad guys from, getting access. The war drivers, we call them. And it also saves a knock on your door from the RCMP or from the FBI saying, we're noticing that people are sending bitcoins or child pornography or something that shouldn't be sent. Even threats can be sent through your Wi-Fi, and they track it back to you, and now you've got to explain it. Get rid of it. Okay?
Well, there's more, just to finish the point, some of the newer routers, Tim, have scheduling built into it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right, so if people are comfortable enough, they bring up the web interface, and you can even choose and say no Wi-Fi between these, or just the LAN ports work. Because I had a few customers that had IP security cameras. So they said, I don't want my Wi-Fi or my internet to be down. So we went into his router, and sure enough, it was fully configurable. And you can make things work. And like you said, Tim, if you don't need it, turn it off. I've been saying that for 25 years.
Yeah, there's how many thousands of ports are available on your Wi-Fi or your router. Mm-hmm. Just your basic interconnect router to the your ISP.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not using them, and a lot of them have the games names that they're used on, just turn them off. And you don't need 90% of them. I mean,
right.
You don't need the ports on. Turn the ports off.
Mm-hmm.
Go in your computer and turn off. Anything that allows remote access to your computer. You can always turn it back on, okay? But just turn that stuff off. Keep people from getting access to you, because it is not very hard. And so like you said, I just tell everybody that if you believe security works, and then I guess you also believe that Santa Claus will be knocking on your door in a few days, because, their security starts with this right there. We
and
used
along
to joke.
The same lines, Tim, don't forget to tell people to turn off things like Microsoft Simple Service Discovery Protocol (SSDP) and Universal Plug and Play (UPnP). Those are also exploited and can cause you a lot of stress.
There's actually a website, and let me see which one it is. I'll look at it. It's the guy is awesome. He goes through and tells you. He even shows you how to go to your registry and shoot things and get rid of them. Oh gosh, I want to say it's like Blacklist or something.
Black Viper or something like that, I think.
Black Viper, that's it.
Yeah, because he does a lot of tweaks for gaming and vanilla systems, and he's an excellent source to find out what services really do and if you need them as well.
Yeah, Black Viper. Have you tweaked your OS? And he goes through each OS and tells you what to turn on, turn off, who to shoot, things like that. So great website. The guy's really smart, really does a lot of work. They call him Charles Sparks. I remember that name. They call him Charles Black Viper Sparks. Great information, and it's just www.blackviper.com.
Still has stuff going as far back as XP.
Oh yeah, he goes way, and he goes back to x86, the original Windows.
All right.
So it's really great, and he's really a smart guy, and he's a nice guy too. So great website to go to. So Tony. Real quick, I guess the first thing we want to leave people with is be smart. Don't necessarily buy smart, and then also if you don't need it, turn it off. By the way, my wife one day couldn't figure out why her cell phone was ringing, but when she tried to answer it, there was no one there. She had a Bluetooth device that she had left on upstairs, and accidentally it had been connected to a neighbor because she didn't change the password.
Nice.
So even here it happens. So so yeah, change your passwords, check it out, make sure things. And by the way, one thing I do not recommend. A friend of mine showed me a website that you go to and you put your password in, and it tells you if it's a good password or a bad password. You're sharing your password. Don't do that.
Along with your public IP.
Yeah. People just, sometimes it amazes me. So think better. If you have questions, we're on www.lovemytool.com, and that is created by my good friend and often mentor, Denny Mew, who, when I first got that, he called and told me that I was in a hospital, and I asked him, I thought we were starting a high-tech website, not a porn site, and Denny said, we got so much good information, geeks will love us no matter what. Your mic's not on, Denny.
No, yeah, I have no audio from Denny. And this is the live portion of the show where something goes drastically wrong.
Thank you, Google.
Denny hasn't paid his bills.
That's it. Denny didn't do it right. Something happened, Denny. Let's see.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we see you. You got a great picture. By the way, I want to mention that if you ever see that clock that's over Denny's left shoulder change, I will faint. Okay? I've known Denny a long time, and that clock has never moved. So I wonder, that must be some special time he put on there. Still can't hear you.
The clock is connected to his microphone.
Yeah. Denny, do you want me to just close the show? Because we can't hear you.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen,